Y'all aren't going to believe this. Jim Harbaugh is in the headlines. Michigan Wolverines preparing for the season opener next Saturday against Middle Tennessee State. But Jim Harbaugh causing a little bit of buzz because he gave a quote to author John U. Bacon in the context of a section on recruiting in his upcoming book on Michigan. Bacon quotes Harbaugh as saying, quote, hard to beat the cheaters. Now, some have speculated that Harbaugh is talking specifically about individuals and teams in the SEC. Yesterday, Paul Feinbaum asked Bacon if that's the case.
He's saying there are guys out there who are cheating. Harbaugh did also not name the schools.
Okay.
But
is he referring to the SEC there?
He would not spell it out for me.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you. So he spelled out nothing on the record, nor did Rashawn Gary.
All right, so you hear that quote, guys, and again, I'm not normally the biggest Jim Harbaugh backer, but I am taking Jim Harbaugh's side on this one. The way the tweets were written today that got everybody in a flurry made it seem like he had said something he really didn't. But let's go in this. Who's got more pressure on him this year? Is it Jim Harbaugh, Greg, or is it going to be Ryan Day on the other side taking over for Urban Meyer?
Oh, Ryan Day is playing with house money. So it's Jim Harbaugh. It's put up or shut up. It was very easy, I think, to point and say, well, Urban Meyer had a bit of a head start. Ohio State's program was vastly superior than the program that Jim Harbaugh stepped into. So it really wasn't an apples-to-apples comparison. Now you look at it, he hasn't beaten Ohio State. And if you look at Michigan's program in general, since 2012, they're 1-14 against teams that were currently ranked in the top 10. That's just not good enough. So I think Jim Harbaugh has a lot of pressure on him, knowing that Ohio State has turned over a new leaf. And if Ryan Day beats Jim Harbaugh in Ann Arbor this year, then it's going to be same thing, just a different day with a new head coach.
It's going to be difficult. You're right. You know, Michigan has found their guy. I think Jim Harbaugh could do a lot of things and still have a job there. The pressure isn't necessarily the same. But if Ryan Day isn't able to win, if he's not able to win with the talent that Urban Meyer's placed in there, I think there could be a lot of pressure immediately on Ryan Day and his ability not to function. But I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. I think both these teams are going to be the cream of the crop when it comes to the Big Ten and be around right around the time the Big Ten championship plays out.
No, to me, the biggest pressure is on the coach of Michigan. Michigan State, that is, because to me it's Mark D'Antonio. It's a very sleeper pick, but think about this for a second. The last 6 years, they've had 4 10-win seasons in the last 6 years. But in the 2 years they didn't have 10-win seasons, they had a 3-win season and a 7-win season. Again, I understand it sounds crazy, but he's one of the longest tenured coaches in college football. The hot seat sneaks up on you. Remember Mack Brown had, 9+ 10-win seasons straight, goes to a national championship, but then goes 5-7, and before you know it, he's ran out of Texas. A very similar thing could happen. Everybody's thinking Ryan Day. Everybody's thinking Jim Harbaugh. But Mark D'Antonio's been his own biggest enemy because of how good Michigan State has been in the last half-decade.
Well, he's been great, but I think he has on a lifetime contract at this point. If you talk to anybody at Michigan State, there's not one person that sat there and said, well, Mark D'Antonio's the one to blame for the 3-9 season a few years back and last year's disappointment. What people have blamed is the fact that they have Brian Lewerke's shoulder and it was half attached last year, so he wasn't at 100%. Like, if we look at it, it's never been about Mark D'Antonio. It's always been about other reasons why Michigan State hasn't reached their potential.
You know what it is, G-Mac. They always say it's not what have you done for me, it's what have you done for me lately. And for whatever reason, you know how it goes. A coach will be blamed long before a player will get blamed. I don't think it's Mark D'Antonio. I mean, dude had one of the best defenses last year, not only in the conference, but in the nation.
What's his record against Michigan? If he beats Michigan this year, they could go 1-11. That's all that's going to matter. If they beat Michigan, as he's done a great job against the Wolverines, and yeah, they came up short last year, but for the most part, he's performed really well in big games. And I think Michigan State fans will appreciate that regardless of what the record might be this season.
All right, so your bold prediction is that if they beat Michigan, he's not going anywhere. I like that, G-Mac. We're getting a little bit bolder here. Acho, I'm going to start with you. Big Ten bold predictions. Fire away. What do you got?
I'm going with 2 Big Ten teams make the college football playoff. Big Ten folks have been knocking
you
me
said
all
two?
week.
What, like
I'm saying
one
two.
and two teams?
I'm saying two. It's my bold prediction for a reason. Let me paint the scenario. Ohio State goes undefeated the duration of the season. Then they lose to Michigan the last game of the season. They don't make the Big Ten championship, but their only loss is to a Michigan team that runs the table, beating Army, beating Notre Dame, beating Ohio State, beating Penn State, and then they go in and they win the Big Ten championship. In the event this rare scenario does in fact come true, because it's possible, then you could see two Big Ten teams in the championship, in the playoff rather, being Ohio State and Michigan.
That's an interesting argument. I have 8 teams right now in my top 25 out of the Big Ten, so you can make that argument. For me, it's the Minnesota Golden Gophers. It's the Fighting PJ Flex. They have a schedule that they could die for, right? They don't play Ohio State. They don't play Michigan on the crossovers. They host Wisconsin. They host Nebraska. They have to go to Northwestern, and they have to go to Iowa. But I think this is the year. The way they finished a year ago, they have a lot of guys back. I think this could be the year that the Minnesota's been waiting for to play in that Big Ten championship.
They were, by definition, a roller coaster. They were like Space Mountain at Disneyland. Like, I didn't know what to expect week to week. One week they look incredible. Right. One week they look absolutely horrendous. If they can level it out, I agree with you. Minnesota's a dangerous team in an ever-improving Big Ten West. Everyone's on Nebraska, right? My bold prediction is that Nebraska is going to be a good team, but they're not going to be as good as the Iowa Hawkeyes, who are going to win the Big Ten West. Everyone's pointing at Iowa and saying, well, the schedule is just a little tricky. They got to go on the road here, and it doesn't matter. They got a veteran quarterback. They have a really solid run game. They're going to be good on defense. They have a potential Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year in A.J. Epinesa coming off the edge. I like their secondary. They're opportunistic. And when you think about Iowa, it's one of those years where we haven't spent a whole lot of time talking about them. Much of the conversation is centered around Nebraska and their resurgence. But every few years, Iowa rallies up and pulls out 11-1, 10-2, 12-0. I expect 2019 to look a little bit like that for the Hawkeyes. I really like what they bring back and think they have a chance to make a little noise in the Big Ten.
I'm looking forward, honestly, Greg, September 14th. Remember, they're going out to Ames to face Matt Campbell's Iowa State Cyclones, and that's going to be a great one to start off the season. We got